So our question today is, why does your business need a better owner? And let me reframe that. If the owner wants a better business, first the business needs a better owner. And of course, that's you. And ultimately, the results that you get in your business are a reflection of how good you are as a business owner. And so we start this conversation with the thought of how do you become a better business owner? So let's talk about the owner evolution and then help you identify where you might be. So you might have started in a different place in the business, but typically one of the ways that pathways people go is they're a solopreneur, you might be a plumber and you got a truck, or you might be a consultant, or you might be an electrician, or you're getting phone calls in the morning and you're driving off and you're taking care of business. And, that works for a while. And then you're starting to get so busy that you think, oh man, I need a helper. I need someone who helps me in the work. And then you might hire an apprentice, and that might mean you'd hire 2 trucks because now it's getting busier and busier, and you're still working in the business. You're still operating tools every day, but nighttime, you're doing payroll, you're doing payables, you're collecting, you're wondering how come you can't get quotes out the door. And that continues to go. And now you've got like 10 trucks, you've got 8 guys or 9 guys or 10 guys. But everything that happens in the business happens because somebody asks you something or you tell someone to do something. You're the hub in the business. You're the operator. Everything depends on you. That's a hard place to be. The next step in that evolution is where you think of yourself as the leader owner. What does that mean? Well, that means that all of the things that everyone depended on you to do in the business is now going to be someone else's responsibility, but not yours. What changes? Everything that gets produced in the business, someone apart from you has got the name or the label or the responsibility of delivering it. So you've got someone in charge of finance, you've got someone in charge of HR, you've got someone in charge of delivering the services that you provide. Not you. When they have a question, they're not phoning you, they're phoning the guy who's the operations manager or whatever title you give. The shift is, if it's to be, it's up to me. And the shift is now, if it's to be, it's going to be done by someone else, but I'm holding that person accountable. I'm the one who sets the goals. I'm coordinating their efforts, but everything the business produces is produced by someone else. And then ultimately, it's the investor owner. Investor owner is an owner who's in the business as little or as much as they want. It's a choice. And largely what that means is you're going to be responsible for strategy, and you're going to be thinking about capital allocation. Is it time to renovate or get a different office? But you're no longer involved in the business day to day at any level. Your role now is to be the captain of the ship. And the shift between level 3 and level 4 is actually the hardest one to do. At level 3, everything depends on you. And so what does that feel like? Well, you're thinking about, I'm working 70 hours a week, and I don't know why, but I can't get everything done because I have no time during the day to actually do stuff. And so I'm doing books on the weekend. I'm doing quotes at night. You're probably thinking, geez, how come I can't hire good people? Or when I hire them, I can't get them to do a good job. They need constant supervision. They're always phoning me. Or asking me for help. And, and I'm not even that happy with the culture that I have. And then money has 2 components to it. So one part of money is, do I understand what's happening in the business? Do I have a dashboard? Do I have a P&L that I understand? Do I have enough cash flowing through the business? All the financial metrics in the business. And the other side of money is, of course, is I need or want more money. I need better sales and marketing. So you're quite likely complaining about one or all 3 of those things. Let me tell you the story of a client of mine, real story. At a factory, had 2 shifts. So it started at 6 in the morning and finished at 10 o'clock at night. And Fred was the owner-operator. That meant nothing could get done unless somebody asked Fred a question. Every time there was an exception or a question or a change needed, Fred was so frustrated. I mean, he'd go to the gym. He was a big workout kind of guy. And he's wondering, how come he can't do a whole set without getting 10 phone calls? Like, the guy felt like he was chained to the business. And here's the thing. He had to be in the business the whole time. That meant he had to be there at 6 o'clock, and he had to be there at 10 o'clock when the shift. He might leave at 9, but he lived an hour's drive away. So what does that mean? Well, he'd leave the factory at 10. He'd get home 11-ish. He'd get to bed, and then he has to be back. So that means he's up at around 4:30. He's in the car driving and to make it back on time to be there for the start of the factory. And he did this for 10 years. He was prepared to pay the price. What did he know how to do? Be stubborn. Just persevere. I can do this. This is what is needed of me. This is what it's going to take, until something shifted for him. And what literally happened in Fred's case is one day his wife said to him, "Your business is your mistress. If you don't do something about it, I will." And that was a shift that caused Fred to think, I'm not prepared to pay that price. Well, first of all, I don't want anyone to think my business is my mistress, and I certainly don't want to give up my life and my family and my wife, and so something has to change. I don't know what to change, and that's when this really stubborn guy, persistent kind of guy said, I don't know how to do anything different. I need to get some help, and he called me, and we had a meeting in his office, and we came to understand what he was trying to solve, and essentially it was to solve his problem is how do I get from being an owner-operator to being a leader-operator so that the factory can function without my minute-to-minute, hour-by-hour involvement in the business. Over the course of 3 years, Fred started to recognize that, in fact, he was the problem. The problem wasn't that he had bad people. The problem is his people had bad leaders, a bad leader. And that he had to shift in how he thought about things. And what that meant is he had to learn how to become better as a leader, better as a communicator, and better at understanding what delegation actually really meant. He thought delegation meant, I tell you to do something, you do it, you come back and tell me that it's done. And what he had to learn to do is he had to actually delegate autonomy and authority. This is your area of responsibility. 85% of what happens in that area ought to be routine, systematized. This is what we do it. 15% of the time, something's going to happen or you need my help. On that 15% of the time, please, in fact, I ask, demand, need you to come and talk to me. And, well, so how do I know what you're doing and how you're going about it? Well, instead of relying on instructions minute by minute, hour by hour, let's agree on some SOPs. Let's agree on some checklists. Let's agree on how we can agree on what we're going to do together. And he got to a place where he had the peace of mind to know that while he was not in the factory, that the factory was still operating in a way that met his expectations. Because instead of relying on these phone calls back and forth or these, hey, got a minute, Fred, or I got a question, Fred, both his team and he knew that they could rely on what they agreed were the standards. But here's the real thing. Fred got his life back. His level of stress diminished. He had time to do the things that he wanted to do, and he no longer felt like he was handcuffed or chained to his office. The most important thing that Fred would tell you is he got his life back. So let's pretend you're a captain in the Navy. Now, you're the most qualified engine room guy. That's your background. That's your expertise. That's your training. And the boat is, let's say, 50 feet, and the crew is 10. And because you're the most qualified engine room guy, how often are you in the engine room with tools? All the time. You're the guy. Maybe you got a helper, but that guy's kind of an apprentice level guy. You're the master. You're the journey person. Now let's make you a captain of a 150-foot boat. Now the title's still captain, but this time you now have 50 people. How often should that captain be in the engine room at all? Well, better be almost never. And almost never with tools. And maybe the only exception to that is if there's a fire in the engine room. Because now that captain has to rely on getting the results that they need to make this boat do and what it's capable of doing through the effort of someone who's now the engine room guy. And that engine room guy may have 2 or 3 helpers. That role of that captain changed, isn't it? I can't be the doer of the engine room. I've got to be the leader of the people that do the engine room and every other aspect of the boat. Now let's make you a captain of an aircraft carrier. Let's imagine there's 2,000 people on board. How often is that captain in the engine room at all? Well, I'm going to bet the only time that captain's in the engine room is when someone's getting a 20-year certificate and it's an official kind of ceremony. Because now that captain has a guy who manages the guy who's the engine room guy. Like he's 3 levels removed. Well, that captain is way, much different role, different identity, different skills are needed to be a captain of an aircraft carrier versus a captain of a 50-foot boat. And that transition is a metaphor for that is what it means to go from level 1 to level 5. And the hardest part is going from the 50-foot boat to the 150-foot boat, because in fact, the change that happens starts with how you identify yourself, what you think of as your identity. Our identity is the things we say to ourselves about ourselves when no one else is looking. Our identity is anything we say with I am, I can't, or I can. I am a great salesperson. I'm a great coach. I can't play golf. Those are examples of how we identify our identity. Here's the thing when we think about your role, and right now you might be saying to yourself, I'm an electrician and I own a business. I'm a plumber and I own a business. I'm a lawyer and I own a firm. As long as you say that to yourself, you'll be stuck at level 3. What's the shift? The shift you have to make is I'm a business owner, happens to do plumbing. I'm a business owner that we do electrical work. So what's the shift that occurred? It's not you at the center anymore. The business is at the center. You're leading the people. You can't get that behavior until you make that shift and recognize, no, I'm not an electrician, I'm a business owner. Well, now your job is leadership, communication, and delegation. Your job is to set the tone, hold people accountable, have metrics in place, have a reporting system that everybody can look at and know whether they're on track or not. What's the purpose of your business? Look, I'm going to give you an answer to that, but before I do, let me tell you that the answer I'm going to give you isn't going to be the same for a guy owning a $100 million business or a $1 billion business. And it isn't going to be the answer you're going to tell your team. It isn't going to be the answer that you're going to tell your vendors, your customers, but it will be the answer you'll tell your spouse. The purpose of a business like yours is to give you the life you want. None of us were born to business. We were born to live. And so many times what happens is we get so wrapped around the axle of our business that our business takes over our life, and every other aspect of our life suffers as a result. I had a client this morning who started the session by saying, I didn't do my homework, but it's been a very difficult week. My wife, from time to time, gets upset that I spend so much time in the business that I don't have time for her or the family. But he doesn't know what to do differently. He doesn't know how to change or how to adjust his thinking so that he is available and, in fact, present for his family. And so your business is a vehicle to give you the life you want. Let's get clear about what life you want for yourself and your family. And then we can answer the question, what does the business have to look like so I get that life? And when you're clear, like Fred was clear, that he wasn't prepared to pay the price of having his life disrupted, that's when he decided it was worth changing how he thought of himself and what he did as a business owner. So I hope that thought appeals to you. I hope you recognize yourself in that. Yes, I do want to live my life in the way that I want. I want to have time for my family, my kids, my hobbies, my interests, my friends, and that my business is producing that for me.